So in this video, I'm going to be talking to you about why most of the people create wealth in their 50s and 60s, especially the ones who make it. Most people don't even make it, but the ones who do make it, why is it that they create wealth till that age? Why does it take so long? And how can you make it much earlier in life rather than waiting for that long? Because what's the point of having money when you're really, really old? You want to have the money when you're a little bit young and you still have time to enjoy that wealth. So it's not just about accumulation of wealth, but it's also about the timing in which you experience this wealth, and you don't want to be too old to be able to enjoy it. So I'm going to be talking to you about the reasons why this happens, and also some of the strategies that you could use to make it earlier in life. So let's break it down and let's get started. So one of the main reasons why this happens is bad programming. Whenever you have to analyze a person's behavior and motivations and why the person is heading in certain directions and why a certain person took certain decisions in life over the course of their life that led them to that particular point, the end point. If you want to look at the basis behind those decisions and actions, you have to study their childhood. You might have seen a lot of the people being interviewed in podcast, billionaires being interviewed, and they always want to look at their childhood. It's because the roots and the seeds of these decisions lie in the childhood. And one of the things that is typically common between most people is that we all go to school, right? And we get our information from school. And the way school is structured, they have a very set program. And people who subscribe to this program typically will make it, if they do make it, will make it in their fixed 50s and 60s. And there are many specific reasons why this is the case. So here is what the program tells you to do. And this is 90% of the people subscribe to this program who go to school. So you got to go to school, you got to get good grades, you got to then find a college, go to college, and then you must do an internship in a company, and then you have to find a job. And once you find the job, you have to stick to that job. You can't change it, because if you keep changing it, you're going to lose your reputation. So you've got to stick to that job and climb the corporate ladder. So you can't really get out of that position. You've got to stay in that position and keep climbing the ladder. And of course, because you have to go to marriages and social gatherings, social events, you need to have a nice car. If you don't have a nice car, then people are going to laugh at you. And, so you need to have a nice car. And if you have a nice car, and if you have a nice job, and you're an obedient puppet, then you will have a decent salary because you're such a good puppet. And, you get a good salary. And because you have a good salary, you have a nice car. Because you have a nice car, you get a nice girl. Once you get a girl, and then you need to start striving for promotion. And don't have kids until you have promoted. And then you get promoted, and then you have kids. And once you have kids, now you need to take another loan to pay off, to start, to buy a house. And then you have to pay off that house from your salary. So this is the program. And then you've got to raise the kids, you got to take care of your parents, and, and you got to keep doing this. And you can't get out of this structure. Okay? And this is a trap. So let's break it down. We got to analyze the nature of the trap to be able to get out of it. Let's start from the beginning. School finished, fine. After that, to get into a college, if you hit the lottery ticket of scholarship, great. If you don't, you have to take an education loan to get into a college. Most colleges lead to one place, employment in a company at the bottom. Okay, so great, congratulations, you're a college graduate with a lot of loan, and you now have to get a job. Otherwise, how are you going to pay off that loan? You would go bankrupt. So you have to get a job. So just that little move of going to college and getting this loan, especially if it's from a bank, not a personal loan, but a bank loan, you will almost immediately have to get a job. Once you get a job, then you will have to pay this loan off. Once you pay off this loan, this is the time where you would start to look at people in your colleagues. They have good cars and everybody's getting married, and you start to feel this pressure. Everybody asks you, why aren't you getting married? Are you getting married? Are you seeing someone, etc., etc. So to get a girl, they tell you you need a car. So you get a car. To get the car, you get a loan. So you have additional debt, and you're buying things which go down in value. Car goes down in value, doesn't produce any cash flow, makes you look real good, but you feel drained. And then you have another girl, she gets locked in with you, and then finally you have the house loan. So because of overburdening your income with debt, it completely traps you with this job, and and it puts you in a very difficult position where your ability to take risks get significantly affected. If you want to create a business, you have to spend a lot of time creating a business, and you would have to take risk, and you would have to take financial risk, and you would want to have some savings in your bank. But because of these loans and these accumulated liabilities, you're overburdened. And also your parents are getting older, so you have to account for that. So you have parents getting older, and some of them are independent, some of them will be dependent on you. Then you have a girl who's dependent on you, and then you have the kids dependent on you. So really, the salary that you have, the banks are enjoying that salary, the wife is enjoying that salary, the kids are enjoying that salary, the parents are enjoying that salary, and you're not enjoying that salary. And this salary comes from a job. So just to get out of these debts, it may take about 10, 15, 20 years, assuming you perform really well. And because you're in such a situation, you may take a lot of abuse at work because they have essentially got you by the balls. The system has got you by the balls. So you are the perfect candidate that is easy to control, and that's what happens. And, a lot of the people ask me, what do I do with depression and mental health? I mean, you are a little bit entitled to depression, a little bit entitled to this stress. And so this is the whole design of the system. And they start doing the promotion when you are probably in your 10th or 11th grade. That's the time where they really start to promote the college. So if let's say you were the owner of a university, of a major university, and your target audience is, school kids. So if you want them to take action, you have to start socializing the idea of going to college much earlier in their life. So you have to start talking, start propagating this idea when they're in their 9th or 10th grade. And you have to link the university with a job, and you have to link the job with income, and you have to link the survival with income. So essentially, your survival now depends on, grades in college. And this is a complete bullshit paradigm. It's just not true, especially in today's time. You don't have to go to college to be successful. You just don't. There may be certain advantages because of education, but you can get education these days online. Many of the universities have online courses. There are private, teachers, consultants that you could take education from. So it's really the education that gets you to success, not the college. So this is the whole scam, essentially, of the system. And to get out of this, it takes decades. And that's the time where, when a person is in their 40s or 50s and they are an executive, that's the time where they have savings, their house is paid off, their children are older, and they have a little bit time left to start something. And that's, a zone where some of the people do. Some of the people start in their 20s when they don't have the marriage, they don't have the kids, they don't have all of these liabilities. That's when they start. I'm someone who started at that age, and that's the right age to start. and some people start at a later stage. So this is something that I had observed, so far, all the seminars that I went, there were two types of people, either too young or in their, late 40s and early 50s. And it's a very strange age because these are the two ages where you kind of are in a position to do something about your situation. And if you are fortunate enough to not get married and not have any kids, even in your 30s, then you're in a really fortunate position where you can start. Again, it all depends on goals. Some people don't have the goal to create wealth. Some people want to get married and settle down. That's perfectly fine as long as they're happy with it. But those who want to get rich, those who want to get wealthy, there will be a price to pay. And if you really want to do it, then it won't feel like such a price because you wanted to do this thing. You didn't want to do this thing. So that's essentially the whole background of the situation. I had one of my business partners who was a CFO of a $400 million company, and he was also a senior partner in one of the big four accounting firms. And this person, attended the first board meeting where the entire board of my company was there. The CEO of $3.5 billion company was there. Top lawyers were on the call. Another one of his colleagues who was also in the Big Four was on the call. Top healthcare CEOs on the call. And I'm the founder of the company and the major shareholder. And I look like a young guy. He did not know how old I was. And that was the first call where he saw everybody coming, and we finished the call. The moment we finished the Zoom call, he gave me a call on my phone and he said, Prithvi, where are you? And I said, I'm at my home. And he's like, could you come to downtown Dubai? And I'm like, sure, it's 30 minutes away. Let me see you. Where do you want to meet? And he named a lounge, a bar where he invited me, and I went there. And the first question he asked me was, like, how did you do this? And then he asked me, how old are you? And at the time I was 26. So I said, I'm 26 years old. And he's like something didn't make sense to him. Like he almost had a paradigm shift. It was almost like he felt like his whole life was a lie and he believed in a lie. And he was like, how is this even possible? This is like, and he was like, I don't even know what I was doing when in my early 20s, mid 20s. And I feel envious of you. And I feel a little bit intimidated by you. And I was like, this is crazy. This guy is a CFO for $400 million company. And I'm just starting out. Like he's intimidated by me. But that is the advantage. If you're starting young, that's the advantage you have, is that, especially if you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s, that you have a lot of time. You can do a lot of tries and make it happen. So when he asked me that, everything, shifted in his mind. And then he went back home and he told me that he told his daughters that, and he was completely enrolled in that program. Go to school, go to college, find a great company, one of the big mega companies, and then work your ass off and work in that company for 25 years, don't change, and reach the ranks in that company and get close to the powerful people. So he was subscribed to the channel. That's the value that he gave to his children. And he said, my daughters have gone to Boston University and now they're working in, LinkedIn, Netflix. And I told them, I gave your example. And I told them that, you guys went to Boston University. Prithvi dropped out of college. He did not even go to Boston University. And he said to me, the executive, that he wasted his whole life. And he said that I could have done what you're doing right now. Because that's exactly what he saw in my eyes, in my position. He saw himself when he was young. And he realized all he needed to do was just do it. That's it. But all of these criteria were set in his mind. He was programmed that he has to go to school, he has to finish school, then he has to go to college, and then he has to go for an internship, and then he has to go get work experience, and then he has to stick with one company, and he has to get experience, and he has to do specialization in one skill, and then, something will happen at the end of all of this. And nothing happened. He retired, he got a little bit of, his pension, and he was sent off into the wild. Like right where he was starting out with just a little bit more money. So if he would have started 30 years ago, he would be completely in the wild, right? But without any money. But now he had just a little bit money and he's still in the wild, except he's in his 50s or late 50s. So he just saw in my result that his whole life has been a waste, career-wise. And he was like, I should have done what you did. And it's completely crazy. So that's one of the major reasons why a lot of the people, they don't make it. Or the ones who do make it, they make it later on in life because they subscribe to this programming. And it's done in a very closed environment of school, closed walls, where the teacher is given all the authority, the system is given all the authority, and they keep propagate this in your mind when you were a little kid and you don't know, what could be possible. Another example of this is one of my friends. She went to New York University to study law. And after studying law, she graduated from the dean's list and the whole family was very happy. She's a great success. She finished college at the age of 27. And she got out of the college and she saw my profile, my LinkedIn profile and my Instagram. And she was like, how come you have so-and-so person from Allen Overy? It's a top law firm. It's a senior partner from Allen Overy or a senior counsel from Allen Overy. And I was like, he's my business partner. And he was like, I want to work in Allen Overy. Could you do an introduction? I said, no, I'm not going to do an introduction for you. We haven't spoken in 12 years. You're messaging me now. But the point that I'm making is that the firm that she wanted to work and the firm that she would start working in at the very bottom, and she probably did not even get into the firm. It's not easy to get into Allen Overy. The firm that she had a desire to work right at the bottom, the guy who was at the top in that firm, who is now retired, is my business partner. Something doesn't make sense. She would be in that guy's position maybe in 20 years from now. And I have the knowledge that this person has. I have access to that just by association. By him being my business partner, I essentially have him on my team, and as a result, I have access to his knowledge and experience. So this whole idea of getting educated for like 7, 8, 9 years, and then working in a company to gain work experience to then finally at some point make money is complete garbage. You don't have to know about everything. You cannot know everything, first of all, and you don't have to know about a lot of things. You just have to find people and align yourself with people who know a lot of things. You cannot be an expert in finance, expert in law, expert in operations, and expert in all of these things. Especially when you're starting out. Maybe over time you can build the skill, but you can be an expert in leadership. You can be an expert in communication, and you can bring all these people together, these great minds together, and you could have access to what took them 30 years to build. And you don't have to have the money. That's another belief that a lot of the people have. You could raise capital, from banks. And the final point, let's say you may wonder that what if someone wants to go down the path of entrepreneurship? What about entrepreneurs? Even entrepreneurs, most of them make it in their 40s, 50s, 60s. Why is that? Because they try to create revenue. They try to create something from scratch, and they try to compete in an existing and established market. And the model that I was trained in by Dan Pena was about buying revenue, buying businesses. Somebody spent 17, 20, 25, 30 years creating a business. You go in and you raise capital from the banks and you just buy the revenue. You just buy the business that they built over 20, 30 years. So you have two options, employment or business. Most people don't create wealth through employment. Most people have done it through business. When you want to start a business, you can either create revenue from scratch or buy revenue. If you buy revenue, there is a high likelihood you would create wealth faster than if you created everything from scratch. To create everything from scratch, you need to develop products and services, do hiring, do market research, run the business. Whatever profits you make, you have to reinvest in the company, keep doing it for 10, 15, 20 years, and then this would become of a significant size. Now, a lot of the people have created a small business, paid their expenses very well, lived a comfortable life, nothing wrong with that. You could do that model by creating revenue from scratch. But most people who have created wealth, they at some point started to acquire and accumulate cash flow producing assets. That's the game of buying revenue. Whether it happens to be real estate or it happens to be a company, that's the only difference. But they start acquiring other businesses. Elon Musk just acquired Twitter. Mark Zuckerberg also got into acquisitions. A lot of the people get into acquisitions. Now, what about guys like Mark Zuckerberg? You might say he created wealth through creating revenue from scratch. Facebook did not exist. He innovated that. Yes, the third method is innovation, innovation of a disruptive technology. Something like Tesla, electric cars, we know about that, or Facebook or iPhone. It's a disruptive technology that kind of like spreads on its own. It's a viral disruptive technology. Those types of business models also create wealth, and they create tremendous amounts of wealth, massive amounts of wealth. But they create massive amounts of wealth for a very few people. Very small percentage of people actually make it in these industries. But when they do, they are the richest people in the world. So that third method also works, but there is a lot of uncertainty. It can happen, and I don't want to say it doesn't happen or it cannot happen. It does happen, but it has happened for a few people, but those few people have made it really big. With real estate and mergers and acquisitions, a lot of the people have done it. They may not have made, hundreds of billions, but they would have made, a couple of $100 million, $50 million, $20 million, $150 million. Those numbers tend to be very common in real estate and mergers and acquisitions. So that's a complete overview of why most of the people make it in their 50s and 60s, and, how can you bring that timeline faster? And the answer, to summarize it, is positioning. Okay. The reason most people don't make it even till their 50s and 60s is bad positioning. Their position as an employee in a company, you can't create wealth from that position. You can pay your expenses from that position. You maybe can live a good life from that position, but creating wealth does not happen 99% of the times in a position of an employment. It has to happen through a business, entrepreneurship, you owning a business, whether that business is something you created from scratch or bought it. That's the only difference. And the ones who create it takes a long time. Sometimes it can happen faster, but generally it takes a while to create wealth. You could make a couple of $1 billion creating revenue, no doubt. Many people have done it. But 20, 30, 40, $50 million is very difficult, in terms of creating revenue. But you could find 10 companies who have 50 million in revenue and acquire them one after the other, and you would have revenue of 50 million. That's another strategy. So that's a complete overview. Most of this whole context, this whole narrative ends to one place, is positioning. Bad positioning versus good positioning. You want to be positioned in a manner where you can acquire other companies, you can acquire assets and accumulate wealth. Then creating it from scratch and you get to own the business that you create. So that's the conclusion of the video, is that if you want to create wealth, you got to be positioned to create wealth properly. It's not hard work. It's not focus. You could work really hard and you can be focused, but if you're in the wrong position or the bad position, you're not going to make it. The vehicle decides how much money you make. The kind of vehicle would decide that. So that's the lesson for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. It was a little bit long than my usual video, but that's, the video for you. And if you want to get trained and if you want to be positioned to create wealth, you can reach out to me. I have a mentorship program where I take you step by step from start until you are in a position to acquire multi-million-dollar businesses in profitable companies, buying profitable assets to accumulate wealth. So there are a couple of steps involved in this. First is you've got to find a region where you could actually do this. There are certain regions where it's much difficult to do it. Certain regions, it's easy. So first step is the region. The second step is the right industry. This cannot be, this can be done in most industries, but the odds of success is much higher in certain industries. For example, healthcare. So, second step would be industry, and third step would be creating a vision that how are you going to penetrate this industry, and then finally you have to sell this vision to a team. You need experts, financial experts, operational experts to come on your board, and you create an alliance with them, and you create a business partnership with them. So they advise you in doing this. Even if you don't have experience, you leverage their experience and knowledge. And then you need a law firm and accounting firm. These are two essential components. And then you would need a bank to finance the transaction. So you would make connections with the banks in your region, and then you would start finding businesses to buy. So if you want to learn how to do this process, then you reach out to me, and we'll have a discussion out on how we can proceed with this, if this is the right fit for you or not. And, we can take it from there. So if that's you, I have left my email down below. Reach out to me on my email, and I'll talk to you soon.